Do we need a countdown, Clay?
No, you're good to go.
Good morning, and thank you to everyone for making yourselves available. I call to order this special meeting of the Palm Desert City Council for December 22nd at 10 a.m. And Councilmember Jonathan, could I ask you to lead the flag salute?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to go ahead and stand. And please recite with me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I will offer this brief inspiration, words from Henry Ford. Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. May that inspire us. May we please have the roll call?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Here.
Councilman Jonathan.
Present.
Councilmember Nestandi.
Here.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Present.
Mayor Kelly.
Here.
All present.
I've been informed that we have no requests for public comment on non-agenda items. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct.
And actually, I am looking in the group of attendees if I can find a Mr. Michael Harrington, who did request the link and wished to speak on non-agenda public comments. Give me a moment, please.
All right, during that moment, I will share that because the Brown Act does not allow the City Council to take action on items not on the agenda, members may briefly respond or instead refer the matter to staff for report and recommendation at a future City Council meeting. Have you found Mr. Harrington?
Yes, I will allow him in. Mr. Carrington, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I hope you can hear me. This is a non-agenda item, and thank you for entertaining my request. I wanted to speak about diversity in Palm Desert, in particular El Paseo. I believe that there was a bias against the Black Lives Matter movement, and that would encompass basically people of color. BLM was told not to demonstrate on El Paseo. However, White Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, and similar self-described patriot or self-described constitutionalist groups routinely demonstrate on El Paseo. I raise this issue because the city and the police department through the sheriff seems to have a bias against BLM or in general diversity and people of color. There was an incident where I feel this bias has trickled down to the store owners. I was having a cup of coffee and on the sidewalk talking to a lady who had some literature and a BLM sign on a public sidewalk on El Paseo, and outran a Starbucks employee who accosted me, prevented me from interacting with this lady. And, you know, I left that area and then just decided to leave El Paseo. And so if there could be more that's done regarding, you know, our leaders, you, in signaling that you embrace and welcome diversity and all points of view. So that would be my request. In fact, I would even consider if you could consider maybe a commission to report to you, a board on diversity issues in the city of Palm Desert. So thank you for allowing me to make my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. And Mr. Binder, could I ask staff to just reach out to Mr. Harrington to learn about the incident he described?
Certainly, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We have 3 items on the action calendar today, and the city attorney gave notice of my possible interest in moving the first item to the 3rd spot. Do any council members object to that change in the order?
Support that.
Mayor, I don't object, but can we clarify for the public what the purpose in doing that is?
My thought was that addressing items 2 and 3 might be helpful background that someone would wish to refer to in the discussion of what is currently number 1.
I prefer to stay in order. I was prepared to go in order. I'm already changing my schedule for this emergency meeting. I would like to stay in order.
All right.
I
My-
actually think that there's no problem with switching the order. I mean, we can speak out of order and we can be flexible and respond if it allows for greater context and understanding. I support that.
As
All right,
do I.
Let me just say that I think if anyone objects, it's preferable to stay with the published order. So I'm not going to solicit a motion or put this to a vote. I think it would be more congenial to stick with the published order if any of us feel injured by a potential change. So we'll take up item number 1, resolution number 2020-83, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Desert, California, adopting a supplementary local emergency order incorporating by reference the acting state public health officer of the state of California's regional stay-at-home order. And before I call on staff for a report, I simply want to feature for members of the public that there was a replacement proposal distributed after the original proposal. So please try to make sure that you have the replacement proposal distributed by the city clerk yesterday before you as this is discussed.
Mayor, would it be helpful to put that on the screen for others to read to see what the changes are at some point during the conversation? Are we able to do that?
I'm sure we are. I could share the screen if no one else could, but let's proceed with the staff report.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. This is Bob Hargreaves, the Palm Desert City Attorney. As you know, 9 months ago, the state issued orders regarding the pandemic public health emergency. At that time, the City Council adopted an emergency order, but it has not yet adopted any official order that would allow city staff, city code enforcement officers to enforce the state orders. Those are, state law. The state can enforce them, the county can enforce them, but under the current circumstances, the city staff cannot enforce them. So this order is before you today to empower city staff under very narrow circumstances to issue citations under the state orders. My understanding is that the purpose here is to use this enforcement capability as a last resort in circumstances where the state and the county are not being effective in enforcement actions. And as the mayor mentioned yesterday afternoon, the resolution was slightly modified, and I'd just like to focus on the language that kind of, describes the enforcement ambient. The city remedies will be used only when state and county resources have not been sufficient to ensure consistency in business safeguards, with punitive measures reserved for any case of flagrant and consistent disregard, and in any event, not prior to December 28th, 2020. And also before any of these remedies would be used, there would be warning, there would be opportunities to comply. And also the city council would be notified of staff's intention to use these remedies, and city council would have an opportunity to call a special meeting and comment on the circumstances where that might happen. We have Ryan Stendell standing by if the council would like a more in-depth look at this point in terms of the current circumstances with respect to compliance, or if there's any questions with respect to the particulars of how the code enforcement might happen. So with that, I would be happy to entertain any questions.
And
I have a question.
Yes, Councilmember Nestante.
Yes, Bob, question. In reading this, it said city remedies will be used only when state and county resources have not been sufficient. Reading between the lines, is that to indicate where we've been since the governor's orders, December 3rd, the state and county are not enforcing these latest lockdown orders banning restaurant dining outdoors amongst other businesses? Is that what that means when it says city remedies will only be used when state and county resources have not been sufficient? So we're basically saying we are going to fine restaurants if they continue to operate outdoors. Could you clarify that for me?
Well, ultimately, the interpretation of that meeting is up to the city council, and city staff would very much appreciate whatever direction council wants to give today. My understanding is, and the genesis of all of this was, early last week at a time when there really wasn't any state or county enforcement of the orders. And my understanding is the situation on El Paseo had gotten a little out of hand. Since then, the state Alcohol, Beverage and Control Commission has come down and threatened at least enforcement, and I believe cited a few businesses. And my understanding is that since that time, the compliance is significantly better on El Paseo. And my understanding is under those circumstances, staff would not be moving forward to issue any citations. But there again, I'm not on top of the situation on El Paseo. We have Ryan Stendell standing by if you'd like,
Well,
exactly.
Bob, with all due respect, you're our legal representative, and code compliance will be viewing this resolution in order to enforce things. And my position has not changed. I want to follow state and county mandates, and they're to enforce their own mandates, not the city. I do not support at all fining our restaurants. I don't believe it's the city of Palm Desert's role. I've been saying that from the beginning, for a long, long time. I could not support this vague resolution. And my other question is, what would trigger enforcement? Because you used the word flagrant. Is flagrant not being 6 feet apart and sitting indoors? How do we define flagrant? I find this resolution very, very vague. And then in the staff report, it does have the penalties and the fine in the staff report. It's not here in the resolution.
So I believe the question, council, was about flagrant. Do you have a helpful response.
But with respect to
or
the,
any enforcement for that matter.
my interpretation of flagrant would mean a situation that's, out of control and embarrassing. And there again, if we have, let's say, partying going on in businesses down there on El Paseo with a lot of people together, no masks, I mean, that would be flagrant. Personally, I wouldn't interpret that to mean people wandering around without masks on generally. And you're right, there is a lot of gray area out there, and that's why it's kind of set up the way it is. If staff sees circumstances that are causing a substantial concern, and there again, staff is not looking to do this. This is like a last resort situation. But if staff sees circumstances that it finds troubling, it'll notify the city council and say, under these circumstances, we're going to move forward. And if that doesn't fit within city council's understanding of their own direction, then the city council can call a meeting and say, nope, we don't want to go there.
Again, I say it's very vague, and I believe city council would have to be more specific to direct staff. And I don't want to get into it right here, but scientific data on shutting outdoor dining is not proven in science. But I have more points to make, but right now we need, I believe, specificity in this resolution.
Thank you. And are there further questions for the city attorney? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Thank you. I have a quick question. So this resolution, am I interpreting it correctly to understand that it is primarily focused on businesses? Or is it focused on people, visitors and residents? I mean, what is there a focus, or is it very broad?
Well, I mean, it basically is set up to enforce state health orders, which are broad, but I think if you look at the way it's worded, it refers to businesses and business consistency and business safeguards. So I think at least at this point, pending further direction, staff's understanding of the order is that it's going to be focused on businesses and potentially flagrant behavior at businesses, and it's not focused on individuals.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This whole meeting, though, was called in reaction to the restaurants and outdoor dining. The other businesses, many of them are operating at 25% capacity for indoor. It was the restaurants that are hurting, and that was the impetus for this meeting.
Let's try to save our discussion for the next phase. I do appreciate eagerness to get to that phase, but let's see if there are further questions. Before hearing public comment, there was a 2-person subcommittee of the council appointed to work on language for this resolution. And I want to see if Councilmember Jonathan, who was a member of that subcommittee, can speak helpfully to its intention.
Sure, I can do that, Mayor. And thank you for that opportunity. As we move forward to public comments and then to council discussion, it's become somewhat obvious that there are really 2 primary objectives here: the success of our local businesses and the safety of our residents. The challenge before the subcommittee and before us here today, therefore, is how to achieve both. We look forward to hearing from the public and the stakeholders, but please know that regardless of the outcome of today's meeting and whether or not you concur with that outcome, our sole objective is to do what is best for the community. Thank you, Mayor.
I have a question, please.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
The offer of hearing from Mr. Stendhal was made, and I think the more information we have, the better we're going to be as we go forward. So is that possible that we can hear from him?
Of course. Would you please elevate Mr. Stendhal?
Thank you, Mayor.
And Mayor Pro Tem Harnick, did you have a specific question to ask him?
I just wanted, not really a specific, but it was said you could talk about the process and what that would look like. And I'd like to know more what this is going to look like. I think it's valuable information.
Good morning, Honorable Mayor and council members. By what it's going to look like, are you asking specifics on how the citation process occurs, or what are we seeing on compliance today?
I would like as much information as you can possibly provide to us.
Okay. Since speaking with Alcohol and Beverage Control last week, I believe that Mr. Hargraves is correct. Compliance has generally increased significantly. I'm aware of only one issue as of yesterday afternoon that we are discussing with County Council. So the help by the Alcohol and Beverage Control was extremely helpful last week. Second, as the way it's been teed up by legal, and Bob, I'm going to lean on you for correct me if I'm wrong, we're using sections of the municipal code that would exist to issue misdemeanor or admin citations. This is no different than any other code compliance citation process. And if you ask me what it looks like, I don't really know because we haven't gone there yet. So what compliance looks like first is frankly myself and Martin Alvarez walking the street and understanding and talking with our business community. And if this is the direction that the council wants to go in, it ends with a visit from code compliance. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
If I might,
Councilmember Anthony, is it okay if Mr. Hargraves explains a bit further?
Absolutely, absolutely, Mayor Kelly.
it's my understanding in terms of the code enforcement citation process under the misdemeanor authority in the municipal code, that code would go out and cite under the appropriate section. It would and our code allows misdemeanors to be cited as infractions, and that's typically the way they do it. They cite it as an infraction and they hold the citation. They don't file it immediately with the court. Typically it's you just got cited, and if you don't fix this situation within a day or 2 days or whatever, then we'll file this with the court, and then you can go down and talk to a judge about it. But typically that's the way it works, is it's kind of like a fix-it ticket. We cite you, it's a warning, it has teeth if there isn't compliance, but the whole point of the process is compliance. It's certainly not a revenue generator for the city. So
Thank you. And Councilmember Quintanilla, you had a question.
Yes, I'm happy that our Mr. Hargraves' response kind of touched on what that was going to be. But the second part of my question was going to be, would this be the kind of situation where there would be the public could report things, or would this be members of or the a neighboring business that would say my business is being hurt because they are open and I'm not? So I've heard a lot of discussion on when one business is complying versus another and how that puts people against one another. So how would businesses be on your radar for compliance?
Generally speaking, good question. We are receiving complaints via just about any avenue you can think of, through the city's web apps, through our online email system, through phone calls. And I myself am receiving and responding to many of those on a daily basis, confirming visually, sending reports to the county council as we've been previously instructed. But yes, we are generally a reactionary approach aside from the limited resources we have out on proactive patrols.
And is there a trend to the kinds of places that you've noticed are, for example, frequent offenders, if we can use the term, if we are trying to look at one proposed behavior, we want to reward that behavior, and those that are outside of that, who are the outliers that are not complying, and is there a trend that we can address?
You know, everything is swirling around the world of restaurants seemingly. And no, I don't notice necessarily a trend. I don't. Not that I'm prepared to, that just like jumps out at me.
Any further
Thank you.
questions? Then I believe we are.
I have a question. I have a question.
Excuse me.
Pick me,
Mayor
pick me.
Harnick.
Thank you, Mayor. And I have a lot of questions because I want to make sure that we have as much information as to make the best decision possible, whatever that may be. So here's a question. With what we currently have on the books, the code can go out and cite businesses. Is that accurate? Code compliances can go cite a business right now.
Not under the governor's order, and I'm going to look to Bob for.
And okay, so I don't really mean under the governor's order. I mean, code compliance today has the capacity to go out to a business that is not in compliance with whatever the business standard guidelines are and cite them today. Is that accurate?
I'm going to say yes, with what is on the books, which with City of Palm Desert Municipal Code and likely other applicable laws.
Okay, so, and I know.
Excuse me, could we just clarify that further? Because I'm not clear with that answer. Frankly, Mr. Stintel and Mr. Hargraves, I thought this proposal was before us because the city does not have the present capacity to respond. And I appreciate Mr. Hargraves' use of plain speak, does not have the present capacity to respond if something is out of control and embarrassing.
That is correct. The city code enforcement has the power to enforce the city codes, right? And the state health orders currently are not part of the city code. And what this order does, if you read it, is it basically incorporates the state stay-at-home order into the city code, makes it part of the city code so that our code enforcement can go out and enforce it.
Okay, so may I, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Okay, so, and I know this may feel like I'm getting into the weeds, but I need this to do what we're supposed to be doing here today. So what would be an example, how it currently stands? What might a restaurant, and we'll use restaurants because that is the focus of this issue currently. What might be something they'd be cited for currently without having adopted the governor's mandates?
I'm trying to think of an example that lives in reality, but none come to mind. But
okay, so, and I can remember we had a bar that had a, and I don't know whether this would be us or not, but it didn't have sufficient ingress egress. Would that be something they'd be cited for? Or is that a fire?
Or trash handling or overcapacity or all those, day-to-day mundane issues that, restaurants are required to comply with.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I thank you. I appreciate that information.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Then, Madam Clerk, I think we are ready for the public comment on this topic.
Okay, I'm going to ask Clay to please put the timer on the screen for the speakers, and Gloria to go ahead and call in the first speaker.
I shall elevate Yolanda Brown. Ms. Brown, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Yolanda Brown, and I'm speaking on behalf of Bill Holzhauer. And the following is what he wrote. Good morning. My name is Edward Holzhauer, and I'm speaking to you through this message. I wish that I could be with you live this morning. However, I'm at work inside of the Westfield Mall. I'm asking you, the City Council, to please create an ordinance to hold businesses accountable who are in violation of the stay-at-home order. Supervisor Perez stated that they would hold the sheriff accountable if a city will put it in an ordinance demanding that he do so. I am astounded that no city has done so thus far. As a frontline employee having a business inside of the Westfield Mall, I'm ensuring that we do our part to make every customer safe and, more importantly, my staff. To date, Westfield has not done anything to ensure the mall is only at 20% capacity. There are no temperature checks at the door. There is no management of traffic inside of the building. This past Friday, as I was leaving work, I came across an employee of one of the businesses inside of the mall who was doing line management. This employee told me half of the store staff has gotten COVID, including their store manager. This employee also told me that their corporation response to this was to hire temporary staff and replace those who are ill. I cannot believe what was said to me, and understood in that very moment that those of us who were forced to return to work because of corporate greed during the fourth quarter have no value to corporations. So let me put it to you this way. My average sale in my location is $415. Is this the value of my life? You sit on the council and deal with city council businesses all the time, fighting over dollars and cents spent. So the real question is, what is the value of human life to you? When you speak of saving businesses, do you consider those who are having to work within those businesses and put at risk every single day? I'm currently waiting test results because I may have exposed to COVID-19 through no fault of my own, because I was forced to return to work for the sake of business. Now I sit in anguish wondering if I could get this and die. And was it all worth it for my corporation to receive another 415? So I implore to you, please put in place an ordinance requiring businesses who are in violation to stay-at-home order and limitations to be fined and or held accountable for every employee who is stricken with this disease or dies for the almighty dollar. Thank you for this consideration, and hopefully I will be able to speak to you again soon. Thank you so much. That's the end.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And who is the next speaker?
I am looking for there it is. I couldn't find the participant or the attendees list. Just a moment. Let me move it from the screen. Mr. Stephen Moye, you have 3 minutes. Mr. Moye, you have 3 minutes.
Sorry, I didn't understand you calling on me. Yeah, I just wanted to thank the City Council for putting this agenda matter on the agenda. And with respect to the issue of the language flagrant and continuous, as a former public defender and criminal defense attorney, I can tell you that this language is more specific than most criminal ordinances. I've never seen an ordinance that used both flagrant and continuous, which means basically open and notorious, plus the person or the business that's being cited has to do it on repeated occasions, probably after repeated warnings. Plus you have the oversight by the City Council. I think this is probably the tightest criminal ordinance I've seen in my experience as a criminal defense attorney and trial lawyer. And I thank you again for all your hard work and considering this matter. And I hope that as a result of you adopting this, we have a safe and healthy new year.
Thank you, Mr. Moyer. And who is next?
Bob Mazur. Mr. Mazur, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, I don't know. I want to thank the council. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
But I know everybody's trying to do the right thing here by the public and the businesses in this town. But I think if the council adopts this resolution, it is going to be leading to increases cases of COVID. And why that would be the case is that it forces people underground. Right now, the restaurants provide a safe environment, a cleanly environment, they social distance, they keep people apart. It's going to force people to go underground, gather in homes. And even though you can say the state order says you shouldn't do that, you know in reality that people are going to do that. And what happens then is you're moving people from a safer environment into an unsafer environment, which would probably lead to an increase in cases. I think it also would be a mistake to support a state order that is arguably illegal and unconstitutional and will probably be found that by an appeals court down the line. There's no scientific evidence that supports that restaurants cause a spread of coronavirus. A recent Los Angeles Times article, an FBN article had indicated that restaurants in Los Angeles, only 3% of the outbreaks stemmed from restaurants. Most of those were from fast food type restaurants such as McDonald's and Jack in the Box, and not sit down restaurants. In fact, government agencies create more outbreaks of coronavirus than businesses. Over 7%, close to 7.3% of the outbreaks in Los Angeles County had emanated from government agencies. So I think if the city council decides that they want to send out enforcement officers to enforce this order, they are placing those enforcement officers in danger of getting COVID as well as the public. Singling out businesses for enforcement actions that arguably will not work is unfair. Why can a merchandise store, a gas station, a grocery store be open with many people inside, whereas a restaurant who has more restrictions on its capacity not be open? I'd appreciate if the council would reconsider its efforts to adopt this ordinance. It's unnecessary. It supports an order that should never have been made in the first place. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Who is next?
Mr. Michael Harrington, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. As to the enforcement of the governor's orders, it is a law that official orders must be obeyed. So the talk about how the governor's orders are not law, I would disagree with that, because it is a law that we follow orders, official orders. It is concerning that the sheriff who runs Palm Desert Police has stated a purely political reason for refusing to enforce certain orders, picking and choosing which will be enforced and which will not, based on his own political reasons. I'm sure there are many people who have been arrested who would like to say, I disagree with the law. Why did you pick this law to enforce and not that one? As a lawyer, we like to think that all persons and businesses are treated equally, and must obey the law or face consequences. That justice is blind, and that we are all equal under law. In this particular situation where Palm Desert Police, and by implication your city leaders, picks and chooses which laws they want to enforce for simply political reasons, our agendas, then we have no equal justice. Again, no justice. We are a nation of laws, not of people. We have a system in place where we go and we vote. We just did that. We can challenge the law, such as going to court. We have branches of government to have checks and balances. This is all at risk, is being threatened. So please remedy this by treating all persons and businesses as equal and enforce all laws and official orders without bias or favor. So thank you.
Thank you. And who is next?
Terry Krogan, you have 3 minutes. Terry Krogan.
All people are equal. So you are picking.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Terry Krogan, and I am a 20-year resident of Palm Desert. And so I'm speaking for myself, and also I am speaking as Vice President of Membership for the East Valley Republican Women Federated. We have over 1,450 members in the Coachella Valley, and approximately 500 members reside in Palm Desert. And we'd like to express our opinion that local businesses should be allowed to open if they wish to do so. The United States of America is a free country, and the recent steps our government is taking, and that's federal, state, and local, to control our citizenry should be alarming to every American. Restaurant owners should have the freedom of choice to be open or stay closed. More importantly, customers should have the same freedom to dine out or not to dine out. We have thousands of local residents who work in our restaurant and hospitality industry who are suffering. Your council should not contribute to this economic disaster by forcing further closures. You're only giving 3/4 of your constituents, approximately 3/4, the ability to earn a living. I believe that there should be an equal opportunity in this regard. The council, you opened up many sidewalk restaurants along El Paseo, and to give these restaurants an opportunity to enjoy a business, for people to enjoy to go out. I thought it was a great idea, looks wonderful. And then we're going to shut it down now. And I really, frankly, don't understand. I think that the choices are very arbitrary. You can go again to a big box store, lots and lots of people shopping, and I don't see anybody there, any code enforcement people there making them shut their business down. It looks like I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Ms. Groken. Who is next?
Ms. Denise Robert, you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Council and Mayor Kelly.
Good morning.
None of you council members or the mayor would follow someone over a cliff. If you follow Governor Newsom's shutdown order, you are leading us all over the cliff. If someone was to tell you not to put food on your table for you and your family and children, you would not obey. This is exactly what Governor Newsom's shutdown order does. I'm going to give you a list of things you can do to stop the shutdown. You can help us by assuring us that the city code enforcement will not participate in the shutdown of businesses in Palm Desert. You can help us by assuring us that the city police will not participate in the shutdown of businesses in Palm Desert. You can help us by working with the health department. In 1997, Palm Desert was made a charter city. The Constitution of the State of California, Article 4, Section 4 and 5 state, the home rule charter cities and counties may develop ordinances to govern local affairs. So appoint our own health officer. Dealing with the liquor license, I sent this email to the ABC board on Sunday, December 20th. Quote, can a liquor license be put on hold for a year? Because the restaurant owner chooses not to serve liquor with its food. Got a reply from ABC Monday morning. A liquor license can be put on hold for 1 year. Fill out form ABC 231. If the restaurants did this, they could have every customer bring their own liquor and charge a parking charge or glass charge. By doing this, Palm Desert open for business. Mama happy, and you know when Mama's happy, everyone is happy. By not doing this, you will cause a blight on our city and wreck our way of life. It's the people who decide if they want to go out and eat and shop. If they're afraid to go out and eat and shop, let them stay home. In our business, a stipend bit of money doesn't feed all the workers. It only eases your conscience. So Councilman and Councilwoman Mayor Kelly, are you willing to let our restaurants, nail and hair salons, and all other businesses go bankrupt and all their workers potentially go hungry? And don't forget, could potentially bankrupt the city of Palm Desert. Palm Desert is a tourist town, and no one will come if they can't eat out, get a hotel room, shop, or play golf. The city council needs to fight for the rights of this business. Nobody can take away this people's constitutional right to decide for themselves whether they go out or not. There has been a precedent set by the city of Solvang. Do the right thing. Open up our cities now.
Thank you, Ms. Roberge. Who is next?
Jeff Garassi. Jeff Garassi, you have 3 minutes.
Can
you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, there we go. Great. Sure, a lot of lawyers here today, albeit confused lawyers, because it's pretty clear that none of you even know what's in your own proposal. But anyway, let me start by informing you that so far in 2020, according to CDC numbers, more kids have died from the seasonal flu than from COVID. Not sure if you're aware of that, probably not. In Riverside County, less than 0.1% of the population has died from COVID, less than 0.1%. Think about that, you guys. You know, I can't even believe we're here talking about this in the United States, let alone Palm Desert. I mean, we have a city council engaging in tyranny by knowingly using fear and intimidation to threaten the citizenry in order to force compliance with an unconstitutional order. Your attacks on businesses are attacks on all of us. The only reason government exists at all is because we consent to government, guys. We consent because we expect you to protect our rights, not to undermine them and strip away those rights. This is pure evil, what you're attempting to do here. And worse, you're doing it under the guise of safety. If you as council members fail in your duty to protect the people's rights by passing this egregious Soviet-style order, then the people of Palm Desert will no longer consent. I promise you that. Gina knows me. I'm a dad. I'm a scientist. I'm a Catholic. I'm a coach. I'm a law-abiding citizen. But if you attempt to use this kind of tyrannical force against us, then we have the right and the duty as American citizens to respond in kind in order to defend our constitutional rights. And we will. We don't need your permission for that. It's like our forefathers said, it's the duty of every American citizen to throw off an abusive and tyrannical government such as this city council. But thankfully, we do have an upstanding sheriff who follows our Constitution. He refuses to obey illegitimate and unconstitutional orders. Is my time up?
No.
But this city council, you guys, you sat down with your attorneys to brainstorm ways to circumvent our laws in order to undermine people's liberty. So you came up with this little scheme, this little draconian 1940s Germany-style scheme to adopt code enforcement, to seize police officer powers, to intimidate and harass the citizens? Are these brown shirts now? Are we going back in history? I don't blame COVID. I blame the state's mishandling of COVID. It's government that's hurting our families, destroying our businesses, and trampling our freedoms. Not COVID, it's you. It's all of you. And so, this is tyranny without exception. And if this order gets adopted, you literally render yourselves illegitimate. You no longer have credibility at that point. We're not going to tolerate overreach by government, by a council of ill-informed socialist bureaucrats. I'm sorry to use that language.
Your time is now up. And who is next? Ms. Sanchez, who is next?
That concludes the public comments.
All right, thank you. Yes, Councilman.
Joe Wallace, the CEO of Coachella Valley Economic Partnership, who the city knows very well, asked me to read his comments into the record, if I may.
Mayor?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
We have two issues with that. First of all, I know Joe wrote a letter, but he did not do it as the CEO of CVEP, and I think that needs to be made very clear. He did that as a citizen of the city of Palm Desert. And that,
Okay,
that was,
I stand corrected.
yeah,
on
that was important to him.
Okay.
The other thing was he did send it to us, and I thought we had agreed as a council that we wouldn't be reading in letters to the record, or we'd all be reading all these letters. We have a stack of letters. So I think we have to abide by what we decided as a council.
Well, in this case, I actually talked to Joe about.
Excuse me. Please wait to be called upon because Councilmember Jonathan has asked to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask Mayor Pro Tem Harnick for some clarification because earlier in this meeting, I heard you ask for as much information and clarification on this matter as possible. But now you seemingly want to suppress some of that information. I'm interested in what Mr. Wallace has to say, and perhaps it's important for the public to get the same kind of information that you have requested we have at our disposal. So I'm hearing a little bit of, dissonance, and I wonder if you can clarify that for us.
Mayor, may I?
Yes.
I am more than happy to. And as you know, I am a supporter of Joe Wallace's. And you have the information because he sent you the email to all of us. So that is not an issue. But if we are to begin reading every letter we get, we got a problem. I hope you took the opportunity to read the letter. It's a slippery slope. We did as a council decide that we would not be reading letters into the record. We had that discussion. And we even asked that letters got in earlier. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Joe Wallace and his thinking, but we do have some guidelines we have decided upon. So that's my thinking.
Councilmember Nistanti, before turning to the letter, did you wish to be heard further before I rule?
Well, if I'm violating a rule on this, I'll just paraphrase his comments when it's my time to make comments, because we're going to be sharing all of our information, I'm sure, from those in the community that we've done some investigation with. So I'll handle it that way.
Great solution.
Thank you. And it is time for our discussion. I can tell that we're all on edge the whole world is on edge. Every single person that I know is suffering in some way as a function of this pandemic. And I just encourage us all to take a deep breath before we speak and to allow that breath to remind us that there are no bad guys in this story. Every single public servant and every single member of the public is striving to serve the two goals that Councilmember Jonathan so eloquently featured for us just a few moments ago, which is to serve the survival of our businesses and the health of our residents. So just breathe deeply to make sure that we show regard for our common cause in serving those goals. Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. And I so appreciate you kind of setting that foundation for our discussion, because I know we all have the same goal as was stated earlier. And I would, like my colleagues, I'm sure I've spent a lot of time thinking about this difficult and challenging issue, and lost a bit of sleep over it. And I think there may be a way to move forward that makes sense. We'll see if my colleagues agree. When this was first brought forward for consideration via an emergency closed session, we were in a very different situation than that exists today. There was a mandate from the governor with no enforcement action, and perhaps as a result, there was widespread non-compliance. Today, we do have enforcement via the governor's strike force, which includes the ABC, as well as over 10 other state government agencies. And that enforcement has taken place in our very city and at the epicenter of our concern today, perhaps, which is El Paseo. As a result, we heard from staff and legal counsel that we now have, I'm happy to say, widespread compliance. So this is a state mandate and the state is enforcing it. Therefore, perhaps there's no need for the proposed resolution at this time. We do not need to pile enforcement on top of enforcement. In fact, I think this is now a solution that is in search of a problem. My suggestion, I'd like to put in the form of a motion actually, and if there's a second, then we can move on to further discussion from there, is that we table this matter to a date uncertain. By doing so, we're not taking action that can potentially be destructive, but at the same time, if things change again, we can immediately pivot, which is the popular word of the day, and take measures to ameliorate a deteriorating situation. So my motion this morning is to table the matter to a date uncertain.
I would second that for further discussion.
And I would vote, just so we know, I would support that, which gives us the 3 votes needed, if we could keep that in mind.
Oh, I didn't say I would vote for it. I said I'm seconding it for further discussion because
Okay.
I would like more information. I'd like to hear my colleagues and their viewpoints on this.
Yes, Councilmember Nastanti.
Okay, yes. So, and we've already heard a few people touch on the issue about the dangers of outdoor dining and the lack of scientific evidence. It's there to find on the California website. The head of the public health, Mr. Ghali, even said the reason they were shutting outdoor dining is that they don't want people to gather. There's no empirical evidence that outdoor dining is the reason to spread COVID. And then even a few days later, the governor's encouraging everybody to go outside and enjoy the great outdoors. And the reason so many people are having a hard time with the governor's orders is because they seem so arbitrary. One week he said hair salons could be open, but nail salons had to stay closed. Then he changed it. He's whipsawed back and forth. In fact, if he thought indoor dining and outdoor dining was so dangerous, why was he caught on camera indoor dining with lobbyists a short while ago, a few weeks back? He closed children's playgrounds in the order on December 3rd. And then a week later, he said, oh no, on second thought, I think children's playgrounds are okay. So we have this arbitrary orders coming from our governor. And the restaurant industry has its own research. They have done a study. They're just showing 1.4%, again, of the spread of COVID is coming from restaurants, whether it's indoor, outdoor, and there's more spread coming from within households. And in terms of ICU, the way it gets calculated, when we hear in the news and even from our own public health that there's 0% occupancy, it's not necessarily no beds are available. It's just once you have 30% of ICU beds with COVID patients, they start recalculating the formula. It's complicated. It's like 0.5% of 10% of this and that. But just because you hear 0 ICU beds doesn't mean there aren't any ICU beds available. And then hospitals have been planning for this even before COVID. They can reconfigure their hospital beds. They can take from neonatal or different areas and meet the demand for ICU beds. In fact, in 2017, the hospitals and ICU beds were more stretched than ever, even more than now. And we weren't shutting businesses down, let alone singling out restaurants. And so those are my comments here right now. And we just need to have a level head. And I support Councilmember Jonathan stating this is a state mandate, and we turn to the county to enforce mandates as we do the state. But I believe the city should stay out of it and support our businesses. They are hurting. Thank you.
May I'd like to ask my colleagues a question. And thank you, Councilmember Nastanti.
Thank you,
I'd like to ask my colleagues a question prefaced by my understanding of why this meeting is happening. 99% plus of our businesses have been consistently compliant with the state orders, either because they agree with them or because they are concerned about keeping their insurance and their state licenses. And I have heard, I believe we have heard from those businesses concern that they want to make sure the city is in a posture to respond if some business in the city is out of step in a way that poses real harm. And I appreciate Councilmember Jonathan's effort to make sure that we're cautious and act as it is necessary to act. May I hear from each of my colleagues a commitment to be available if an emergency meeting is necessary in response to changed circumstances? I think the public would appreciate hearing that commitment. Thank you.
I make a commitment.
I absolutely will be available for any city needs.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
I echo the same sentiment. I am here, committed, and available.
And Councilmember Jonathan.
Anytime, anywhere.
Thankfully, that is a gift of Zoom. Hearing that commitment, I can be comfortable supporting Councilmember Jonathan's proposal. we each have somewhat different perceptions of just how dire our present circumstances are. There can be no question that our hospital personnel are stretched close to the breaking point. Whether they have extra rooms is less the point than the limitations of the human body. There's plenty of room to debate whether all aspects of the state order are truly helpful to them. And if the city had the power to change those orders, this would be an all-day hearing. We don't have the power to change those orders. So we're plainly and simply trying to find our way to again serve those two central interests that Councilmember Jonathan so well featured. And I think we can do that personally by holding this duel in reserve so long as it's clear that we are ready to come together again and to respond to any evolving problems. So are there any other comments before we vote on the motion? Yes, Councilmember Quintanilla.
I have the heavy concern that I understand that we can be available at any moment and even a 1 hour notice should we need an emergency meeting. But my concern is that by shifting our focus from the overall spirit of addressing flagrant violations to then taking a narrow focus to only restaurants, we are not taking into consideration the needs of the kinds of establishments that are not subject to any kind of action from alcohol and from ABC. So for example, we heard some of the comments tonight about Westfield and how their capacity is not being monitored. So I think that we would be remiss if we did not have some future discussion about how it's not just the businesses with restaurants that we're looking at, but how it is our responsibility to be able to listen to everybody. Again, it would feel unethical for me to not address the fact that while we continue to discussing this or moving it for a future date, people are still dying. We have nurses that even if they find another bed, even if they wheel a cot into a hallway, it doesn't mean that they have the staffing ratios. My sister is a nurse. My uncle right now is hospitalized. And where I used to work, half the residents of the senior home are now infected. I don't think that they're out there going out and dining every single night, nor do I think that they're having party clusters. I think it's just the fact of the matter that we are not doing enough to slow the spread, and we can't continue to hope that it's going to get better. And we have this meeting today that was called for this action, and we owe it to people to have a guidance and sense of we feel their urgency, and that we're not only looking at businesses that have food as a central gathering. We are looking at overall businesses that have the flagrant abuses. And I just needed to be able to express that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question for you, Councilmember Quintanilla, in terms of clarification. So what I'm hearing you say is that either now or later, we kind of need to expand our scope in terms of keeping residents safe. And I assume you would want to follow the science. The science indicates that the greatest spread is occurring in households. Are you suggesting that we consider putting code compliance, send them out to homes on Christmas Day and make sure there's not over, 3 households, that they're social distancing, that they're not spending more than 2 hours with each other? I mean, I want to understand what exactly you're proposing.
May I answer, Mayor Kelly?
Please.
I appreciate your request to clarify, but I'm not going to take the bait to use some hyperbolic exaggeration. That is by no means what we're discussing. I think we just need to be clear about what our intentions are in terms of making sure that people understand. And if we're talking about science, this council had the opportunity to do more to let people know about masks when everybody was knowing that masks were working. So if we're going to go back and talk about science, we're not going to move forward.
Thank you.
I've rarely heard science referred to as bait, but if you don't want to answer, that's your prerogative. Thank you so much.
Let's refer to the dinner of discussion that existed about 45 seconds ago, which was extremely constructive. Councilmember Quintanilla, I appreciate the reminder that this is about more than restaurants, and many of the comments that we received were just to be consistent. I want you to know that when I have heard complaints from residents about the operations of other businesses, I have asked the city manager to investigate that. So we are trying to keep a broad focus, and I would urge you to similarly communicate with the city manager if specific circumstances come to your attention. Is there any, let's move on. Is there any further discussion on the motion to table? Yes, Councilmember Arnold.
I would like just to make a few comments, because what I noted in some of the public comments we received and many that I read, it became political, and that's not where we want to go with this. Because as we said, we are protecting people, and I think we don't even need to say businesses, because our businesses are the people. So we want our people, our community members, and our guests to be safe and to be healthy. And Mayor, you talked about the limitations of the human body, and it's the limitations of the human body and the mind. And we have our healthcare workers who are there working for us. And it's very important. We hear little tidbits of this many people die. Well, if it's your loved one dying, it's not okay. Additionally, some people get this infection and still are carrying results from it and may for the rest of their lives. So it's not just life or death. It's not just, gee, I've healed up and I'm okay. A lot of people, I think they even have a name for it, is it the long haulers? So I just want us to be careful and remember this is about people. And yes, we have rights. And we love the country in which we live because we have those rights. And let's never forget that with rights come responsibilities. And we have responsibility to our neighbors. And I just want us to really pay attention to that. I want to touch on a few other things because I heard we were having secret meetings, and that is a baseless accusation. We do our best when we have an emergency meeting to let everyone know that these are not secret. This is us when we feel we need to act quickly and in the best interest of our community. I also want to point something else. When you hear people and everybody, we all have this tendency when we have a position, we'll go on social media and we'll pick and choose the social media that supports our position. But as a council, we are tasked with looking at every position to take as much information as possible and to make the best decision, not just to support one side or another or something that makes us it fits our needs in our mind. So yes, we have to do something about El Paseo because we've worked very hard to make El Paseo have the high profile it does. It's important to us as a city. It generates the revenue that paves our roads and police and parks and takes care of all those things. So we've worked hard, but with that then also comes the profile of the violations we had. And we know that not all the violators were just saying, oh, please social distance. And please remember everyone that our sheriff said, social distance and wear a mask. Those are important. So some of them were absolutely violating. They were shoulder to shoulder and without masks. Please let's take care of our neighbors and our guests. So that's all I have to say. absolutely support what Councilmember Jonathan said. We were fortunate that when it got so bad because of the high profile of El Paseo, the APC stepped in. I think Councilmember Quintanilla makes a great point. It's not just about restaurants. It is about our community, is about our restaurants, our residents. So let's support each other. Let's keep each other safe. And we did an awful lot about masks early on. And, you know, I know there have been those who've said we haven't done enough. I think we did an awful lot and we continue to do so. And we're fortunate with CVEP, we have the PPE and we can take care of each other even better. So those are my comments.
Let's take the vote on the motion to table.
Mayor Pro Tem Hannett,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nastandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
You are muted.
Yay, we can table.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And thank you for a mostly civil discussion. Which brings us to item 2. Request to repurpose uncommitted funds from the United Palm Desert Hospitality Incentive Program to the United Palm Desert Economic Relief Program to assist businesses adversely impacted by the COVID-19 public health emergency. And I hope all council members receive the red line staff report. Give me a thumbs up. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Arnick, did you receive the revised red line staff report?
And is this for action item number 2?
Yes.
I'm not sure that I have.
All right, so let me.
It may be on your door.
Let
me check.
Let me quickly explain before the staff report that the purpose of the red line was to recognize that this help is not solely for closed businesses, but for all businesses that have been impacted by the state orders. So, for example, restaurants are still open for takeout or delivery. Those are clearly impacted and eligible for this relief. So, Mr. Alvarez, having teed up that key issue, please give us the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Good morning. As we move forward with trying to assist our businesses, our local business community has been very fortunate to have the support of the City Council through our Unite Palm Desert campaign. We've been able to help businesses with loans, the hospitality sector, community partners, and this particular item is a continuance of this assistance for our community. As you mentioned, this item will allow us to repurpose $500,000 to assist businesses that have been adversely impacted by the current stay-at-home order. It's a very simple program. It is $5,000 eligibility, and the requirements to qualify would be that you comply and continue to comply with the current stay-at-home orders that are in place. We have businesses that have been listed under the current ordinance or stay-at-home order that would qualify. That's also in the staff report. And we would begin taking applications through our website on December 24th, and we will run through January 11th, at which time we will evaluate it. It will be a first come, first serve program. And we anticipate to be able to help approximately 100 businesses that are currently impacted. As you mentioned, the guidelines have been modified to address that this is for businesses that are currently impacted by the stay-at-home orders. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And that concludes my staff report.
Councilmember Nastandi.
Thank you, Mayor. Martine, thank you for your staff report. I know this is a busy time for you. My question is, and I know it's all businesses, but in my opinion, the restaurants have been most adversely affected because they've had to, back in May, Memorial Weekend, they were told they could reopen. They spent thousands on food to restock, only to be shut down again. And then outdoor dining in the summer really isn't feasible. Then the city said, we're going to give you conditional use permits so you can do outdoor dining decks. And again, even the city helped pay for some of that, but other owners as well forked over thousands for outdoor dining decks. And in the restaurant owners I've talked to, they say in order to just break even, they need at least this is on average, a couple $1,000s a day. And while 5,000 is better than nothing, at least they could feed their family. Is there any other pot of money that we or the city council could consider from our emergency funds, or reach out to the state that brought in 25 billion in a surplus that they were not expecting? Because we really kind of have an eminent domain type issue going on here. We've taken livelihoods, and the government's supposed to give back fair compensation. So that's a long-winded question.
Could I make a suggestion here? Thankfully, the legislation that was just passed by Congress these last 36 hours has some provisions which are explicitly designed to be more restaurant friendly in the distribution of PPP money from the federal government. And I wonder, Councilmember Jonathan, with your expertise in such matters, if you would be willing to summarize for us.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. If everybody has an hour or two, I can turn this into a seminar on the new PPP program, but I'm guessing that's probably not what you're asking for. So just the highlights, and this is brand new, so some of the details are just being rolled out, but this is a $900 billion aid program, and a third of that is specifically targeted at small businesses. So there will be a second round of PPP loans, already called PPP2, that in some cases will be available to those who have already received a PPP loan, such as restaurants, frankly, who can show that any quarter during 2020 had over 25% reduction in revenue compared to the same quarter the year before. And I think most restaurants would qualify under that parameter, as well as the EIDL loans. There's a new round of those, and special funding for low income communities and so forth. There is also part of that, it's almost $200 billion for a renewed round of the $600 per person direct payments, $1,200 per couple, and another $600 per dependent child and so forth. And then there's additional unemployment benefits, not quite the $600, but the $300 per week that will go through March 14th, I believe. And then there is specific, as you said, Mayor, funding for certain small businesses that have been deemed to have been particularly adversely impacted by the closures. And that would include live venues such as independent theaters, cultural institutions, and restaurants. So there is, beyond what the city may do today and has already done, there is additional financial assistance that has come through from the federal government. And we have already seen additional financial aid coming through from the state. Does that answer?
Yes, that's extremely helpful. And I do want to give Mr. Alvarez a chance to answer your question, but I'll lead just by expressing something I think we would all agree upon, which is $5,000 isn't enough. But if it can help keep body and soul together until some of these other forms of relief can come through, it's still a meaningful form of support. So, Mr. Alvarez, to remind you, the question was, have we looked for every possible pot?
Mayor, yes. There's opportunity if the council as a whole would like to consider additional funds. There are some funds, I believe, available in our Economic Development Reserve Fund. And if you want to have a discussion more detailed than that, I'd ask to see if we can elevate Janet, our finance director.
Here she comes. Yes, Ms. Moore, did you hear the discussion?
I did hear the discussion, except I believe Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Harnick had a comment that I think while it was connecting, I may not have heard.
I didn't, but may I add this to what you're about to say, because this will integrate well into the question that Ms. Moore is being asked to answer. We also hope that at some point we are going to have visitors in our hotel rooms. Do we also have a plan to backfill these funds that we are taking for this purpose so that we can get that back into our hospitality incentive program?
Okay, well, let me first start with, this was because we knew that there was an emergent request of the council to get this out there. Mr. Alvarez and I discussed this and looked at various ways to do that quickly. This is the quickest way to get that moving because, as he notes in his staff report, there are 7 hotels that have signed the hospitality agreement. But if you actually take those 7 and you do the math on that, they all equal up to 400,000 of the 900,000. So we don't have others that have began participating in the program yet, but this would give us at least some time to look at other options. There is money in the Economic Development Reserve Fund. Again, that is a general fund reserve fund established for economic development. There is also things in the pipeline that you may remember, some property sales. And whenever there's a successor agency property sale, the successor agency, when we receive the money, actually, when the city gets its money, allocates half of that to economic development, the Economic Development Fund. So there's some things that are coming. And there's additionally some requests that are being made in addition to this that I think you'll see at your January meeting. But we just thought this is an immediate response, but we can keep looking, we can keep researching. We did receive $650,000 CARES Act money for the city that we have allocated to public safety costs. Those public safety costs, obviously that means that depending on if it's to police or fire, it could cause there to be some savings there. But I do know that those are things that are actually going to be discussed with you later or early 2021, I believe, at your first meeting. So there's a couple of things in play here. And that, like I said, this was the immediate reason that we selected the hospitality program because other entities had not signed up. And that was the quickest way to get the money on the street.
Other questions for staff? Yes, Councilmember Quintanilla.
Good morning, Mr. Alvarez. I recall in a conversation that we'd had in regards to the process for applying for some of these loans. You mentioned that there were some small businesses that were not able to because they weren't quite up to date with paying some of their business fees. And so wondering if some of these businesses that are already the most difficult hit and are not even able to pay for some of the operating fees, is there any sort of trickle down, anything that can support them? There are businesses that I see that don't have markers on the floor. That is something that we could potentially do with some of these funds that could be free up to just give stickers that would indicate clear markers. There are small but significant things that we could do to support some small businesses in ways that they may not have been able to qualify for first round of things if they were not in proper standing or compliance to be eligible.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Quintanilla. We certainly can look at those ideas and options. Yes, certainly any way we can help, especially under the Unite Palm Desert umbrella. We certainly can look at other opportunities, just like we're doing with the PPE that is going to be helping our businesses. So the focus of this particular loan will be specifically, at least the way it's drafted, is just those businesses that are currently impacted by the order. And so if there's money, say, available at the end of this window, we could certainly look at additional funding for businesses.
And would it, just Mayor Pro Tem, if I could make sure I'm hearing things correctly so far, then we'll get your question. Am I hearing correctly that you're bringing this forward because it's something that you can accomplish urgently in response to our request for emergency relief, while other ideas for additional relief are being refined? Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes, that was my comment. If that is, while we're in the process of exploring different ideas and different ways that we could support small business and micro business and restaurant and non-restaurant alike, to include different opportunities to encompass the businesses in Palm Desert.
And from staff's perspective, am I viewing this proposal correctly? It's not, in other words, it's not intended to be the do-all and be-all. It's intended to get us to do what we can to in the present moment to be helpful.
Yes, absolutely. This is not the end of the program. This is just a quick and simple solution to continue to assist our businesses.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Thank you, Mayor. So first I want to thank you, because I know it was just, I don't want to use the expression fire drill, but I suppose it's kind of appropriate that we as a council said, please hurry, and you did. And I thank you for putting this together so quickly in response to our request and in response to our businesses' needs. So thank you. I may have not seen it, but you mentioned that these are for businesses that are compliant. Do we have any teeth in this because we gave funds before to businesses that were compliant and then they chose not to be? So do we have teeth in this that says we've given this to you and then they go into non-compliancy? Do we have any sort of way to deal with that?
We have a promissory note that we're going to be asking the businesses to sign. In that promissory note, there is the requirement, of course, to comply and to continue to comply with the current stay-at-home orders. And so if there is a violation of that, they would be a violation of the promissory note, which at that time, the loan would not be forgivable.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. And I echo my appreciation to you, Mr. Alvarez, and your team for acting so swiftly. I do have a question in terms of, oh, and by the way, I think the eligibility is defined in your report. One of the bullet points is must be in compliance. So I think that helps as well. But my question to you is, the initial staff report indicated that this is on a first come, first served basis until funds are depleted. And then the updated guidelines that we just got this morning says that the first 100 completed eligible applications will be funded. And I'm just a little concerned about, these things, especially the people that don't get funded may question, our process. And so I wonder if we can have some clarification. And part of what I'd like to understand is, did staff consider an alternative where you have an application period? I think you said we start on the 24th of December, where we go for 2 weeks or whatever, and then perhaps all eligible qualified applications will be considered. I don't know if that would make things better or worse, but have you given some thought as to clarifying the process and eligibility for those applications that will be granted?
Yes, thank you for that question. It's actually a good opportunity for us to clarify that. Our intent, and we can probably modify this guideline to indicate that this is first come, first serve. And for the first, 100 eligible businesses, right? Because we are going to be checking that they're in compliance, that they have a business license, and that they meet, the eligibility criteria. So it's not just the first 100 get it. It's going to be eligibility that determines that and also the sequence. So we can make that clarification, and I definitely would like to, if the council wants to go in that direction.
I wonder, just to follow up on your question, Councilmember Jonathan, because I had the same curiosity. By going this route, instead of having a 2-week or a 3-week application period, and then looking at all of the applications together, does this route allow us to get the money out faster by processing applications as soon as they come in?
Yes, we can certainly do that. We'll take them as they come in, and not wait until the end of the application period. That's a good point.
Because if that's true, I see the advantage to this method compared to the other. Any other?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Mayor. That's a cogent point, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? The sooner we do this,
I see Mayor Pro Tem Harnick has a question.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm trying to figure out how exactly I'm going to do this to get your attention.
Well, here's the problem. Your hand is the same shade as your background. So,
Well, it would be easier at this point for me just to change the shade of my hand because it's a whole painting thing. So
right,
I'll start wearing gloves.
Exactly.
Okay. And I want to ask this. I have 2 questions. So are these all online applications, or will they also be able to drop them off, or what's your thought on that?
Our preference would be to go through our business support hotline and email address that we've set up, and we have that all information on. We will have all that information on the website. Okay. We're trying to not have the contact, and I think there will be some staffing that it's better for us to just do it online.
Okay, so here's my question. And it's in the unlikely event someone is unable to do it online, could we put a Dropbox or someplace where they could just put it through a slot? And I get, we don't want contact. We're doing our best to avoid that. But somebody's computer broke down. I don't know. It's, again, in an unlikely event, we want to make sure that everybody has that ability to submit an application. So that was my first. I hope we can find a way to facilitate that. The second, I'm looking at our agenda, and there is no place for for council comments at the end. Can we have a moment for council comments, please, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, any other questions? The sooner we pass this, the sooner staff can get busy facilitating these applications. I know Martine is already speaking with the Chamber of Commerce about inviting all of our city businesses to a Zoom meeting to get information about this option. Councilmember Jonathan.
Very quick question, because I'd assumed this and then I realized I better not assume. Mr. Alvarez, will both the informational outreach and the application itself be available in both English and Spanish?
That is a very good question, and currently it's not. We could pivot and see if we could turn something around, but it's a very good point. We'll do our best to get that looked at, with the limited resources we have.
Okay, and I know we want to move quickly, and if it's not possible to do that on this round right away, then I hope it's something that a capability we develop for the future.
And I'll also put in our information. What we can do real quickly is put my information, my contact information directly, so since I am able to speak Spanish and help businesses as well directly. So we'll put that information, like just sort of a sentence. If you need help with Spanish information, to contact me directly, and I'm happy to do so.
Gracias, señor.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you, Mary Kelly. I just wanted to say I'm very appreciative that Councilmember Jonathan brought up that wonderful point. I am very happy to hear that's being brought up, and I offer myself and my translating services to gladly translate as much of that as needed in order to expedite and make this accessible to as many people. So this could be my priority for the weekend, and Martina, I would be more than happy to work with you to get that out as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
So with abundance thanks to Martina and his team, I would like to move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nestandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And thank you both to Martina and his staff and to Janet Moore and our incomparable finance department team. Item 3 is an information item, a report on the Step Up to the Table Palm Desert social media campaign. Mr. Sewell.
Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, I'm Thomas Soul, your Tourism and Marketing Manager. And the item you have before you here is simply an informational item regarding an established grassroots initiative called Step Up to the Table. This initiative originated in Orange County as a way to help support restaurants that are struggling with the effects of the pandemic and the state's stay-at-home orders in the interest of finding proactive steps that the entire community can take. This is something that any person can participate in by taking 3 simple steps. The first step is to purchase gift cards or pick up a meal from your favorite restaurant. The second is to take a photo or video and share it on social media using the hashtag #StepUpToTheTablePalmDesert. And then the third is to invite other people that you know to participate by challenging them to step up to the table as well. For restaurants, these gift cards represent the dual benefit of immediate cash flow as well as future business, which is an active step that everybody can take to really help the restaurants we love. I know we've been talking a lot about finding ways to help these restaurants. This is something that the entire community can do. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Saul? Councilmember Jonathan and then Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Soul, I apologize for this because it's kind of picayune, but at the same time, it's something that's important to me and I think to us. Just your staff report under strategic plan indicates that this item has no direct bearing on the strategic plan. And I often show off that just about every action we take is organized in terms of our achieving our goals. And those goals start by being defined in the strategic plan. So of course, not having the strategic plan fully committed to memory, I looked it up. And I think that one of our strategic goal areas is to facilitate economic development and the health of our existing businesses as well as new businesses. So I wonder if we can at least recognize in this meeting that in fact, what we're proposing to do here does in fact bear relationship to our strategic plan. Would you concur? Again, I'm sorry to be so picayune.
No, absolutely, and I appreciate the highlighting of the strategic plan in that way. And sometimes I think the things that we do are so entwined with the strategic plan that we forget that they address specific steps. So absolutely, economic development is at the heart of this, and our restaurants really are the lifeblood of one of the streams of lifeblood of our city. And so anything that we can do to help them really does support that overall strategic plan. So thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you. Good morning. My just quick question would be, in coming up with the hashtag, are there any alternatives, maybe any that are a little bit more concise, since we know that in order to truly have a viral campaign, we need something quick, snazzy, instead of the longer it is for someone to type it out, the less likely they are to use it. So in the effort of having the most pizzazz possible and traction with this hashtag? Are there any other smaller ones, or maybe they could be used in conjunction with the original nod to the Step Up to the Table? But if we could come up with even just Step Up PD or ways to shorten it to really encourage use to have the greatest benefit to the restaurants we're trying to support with this.
Absolutely. Any of those hashtags would work. Also, Discover Palm Desert works, Unite Palm Desert works. These are all hashtags that we're using for each of these. The main thing is to really reach out to our contacts on social media and support, challenge them to do the same so that we drive business to the restaurants. Thank you for that observation.
Or maybe a Palm Desert business challenge, or again, just something else that tags along with it that really spurs the action, but it's not just the act of sharing on social media, but that takes it that extra step further, not just the step up, but engaging the wording for challenge to be an action item while engaging in social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just point out that this is not actually something that the city is doing. This is something that we're encouraging the community to, it's an action that came from the community. So we're supporting that rather than directing it. But we encourage, of course, any of these active steps that people can take. We're engaging with the Chamber of Commerce for them to take an active role on behalf of their businesses as well, and the El Paseo Board Business Improvement District as well. So absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Mayor Pro Tem Arnick.
Thank you. And I have noticed recently on social media that I'll just start putting in a couple letters, and that now the tags start popping up, and they didn't always do that. So now when I start with Unite, my Unite Palm Desert or Visit Palm Desert, they all start popping up, so I could just quickly put them in. The other thing I wanted to mention is there, fortunately enough, for people who are really uncomfortable going to the restaurant to get the cards, they can do it online, and you can still do a social media in front of your computer saying, look what I did. And the other thing is a number of restaurants are doing the buy 100 and I'll give you 20 free, or, $100 worth of cards, and we'll give you $20 for free. And I know, or similar programs. So there's a lot of opportunity to even make it a little sweeter.
Right, we've been asked to receive and file this item. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved. And I challenge you all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan.
Aye.
Councilmember Nestandi.
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Aye. Challenge accepted.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Right. I believe staff have a couple of additional information items for us. Is that true, Mr. Binder?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We have Lori Carney, our Director of Administrative Services. She has a brief comment. Okay, how about Deborah Glickman to talk about PP&E?
And while she's speaking, I will be off camera, but listening. Just have to.
That's twice
Good morning.
today I've done the mute thing. I'm sorry, you going first, Lori? I apologize.
I'm so sorry. I didn't hear what the mayor said. So
I didn't
as
either.
was
Go ahead, Lori.
Popping in. Well, and I was going to say that many of the things that I was going to give an update on have already been discussed earlier in this call, including the situation in our hospitals, case rates with the county, and information that we are receiving from the county. So I won't belabor the meeting by repeating some of those things. I will also update you as the city of Palm Desert, as with many businesses that are housing essential workers, have our own impacts from the virus, which I provided a written update to the council last night. And again, I don't want to belabor the meeting with more information that has already been discussed.
Thank you, Ms. Carney. And Ms. Glickman?
Yes, sorry about that. Good morning, Mayor and City Council. I want to give you a brief update on our distribution as part of the Million Mask Giveaway from CVEP. We are very happy to say that our distribution center is up and running. It's open from Monday through Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Palm Desert Community Center located at 43900 San Pablo for anyone listening. So far, I believe we've served about 50 businesses in a day and a half, and anticipate in serving many more. We are actively doing outreach via social media, press release. I've emailed hundreds of businesses within the city directly, so I anticipate that we'll continue to have a steady stream of people coming to pick up PPE. And I will say it is a very gratifying event to have. People are very gracious and very happy to be receiving the free PPE. So it's a nice opportunity to be involved in.
And thank you to you and to all the staff who've been involved in really a Herculean effort to make this available.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you both. Mayor Pro Tem Harnick, you asked for the opportunity to make comments. I'll encourage any council members who do want to make comments to be as brief as possible.
She just told me to put it on fast forward. I just have one quick request actually for consideration at a future meeting. And that is that we had waived fees on TUPs for our restaurateurs when they extended their dining outside. And I'd like to see if we can extend that and make sure that when these come up for renewal, we are not asking for fees for those TUPs, that we can again waive the fees for them. So take a look at some way we can do that. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Does anyone else need to be heard? Councilmember Quintanilla?
Just a quick general public safety reminder, please, 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 the best way to show love, care, and compassion for our loved ones is to keep our distance. We can gather when it's safe and healthy. We don't want to give COVID for Christmas to our loved ones, or Hanukkah, or whichever holiday you're going to celebrate. You don't want to give the gift of COVID. Just remember to keep ourselves healthy and safe. Healthiest holidays to everyone. Thank you.
And thank you. And I'll finish by saying, I think Henry Ford would be proud of us for working together. So be well. And thank you again to our tremendous staff for your consistent service to our residents. With that, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor. Good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
11:54. Yeah.